During this episode, Mick Foley said, "You don't just play a character, you inhabit the character." Mick Foley knows all about that. He dove into every single character, every single aspect, every single bump. He's one of many wrestlers that invested in their character, their gimmick, became exactly who they were on television. Matt Bourne was certainly no different. I'm John Retton with my review of Dark Side of the Ring. What happened to Matt Bourne? Goodness goddamn me, this was a trip. It went here and then went way over here. Holy goddamn shit. Anything from drug abuse to wrestling gimmicks that were anything from a lumberjack to a standard wrestler that was a second generation talent to an evil clown and everything in between, and drug use, and my god, this was a goddamn trip. And also a possible cover-up of a murder? What in the world was going on here? There's a lot to dive into. Let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments, please. I will say this. Even though I was only 11, 12 at the time when Matt Bourne played Doink, it got my attention. It worked. It stuck with me. An evil clown, even at that point, and the cartoonish landscape of WWF at the time, that is, let me tell you, it got me. It got a lot of kids' attention. It's a shame that his vices did take hold, because it could have lasted quite a bit longer. Yes, the Doink the Clown character lasted longer, but became much more cartoonish and all good and everything by late 93, early 94. I mean, you had Dink, you had all that stuff. I mean, it's a shame because the evil clown gimmick, despite, on the surface, it really worked. And, you had demons, the addiction demons, that was really, really hammered home quite a bit. We see footage from an Arkansas 2012 indie show where, my god, there were like maybe 200 people there. He's also reflecting on his, career highlights in the big time. And Matt Bourne was a good worker. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say I was his biggest fan. A lot of his stuff was before my time. But looking back on, yeah, he was a good worker. But he also had all the issues. Again, I think 50% of this goddamn episode was about drug issues, but you gotta tell the whole story, or at least as much of it as possible. He faced Ricky Steamboat at the first WrestleMania. Despite the fact I have seen the first WrestleMania multiple times, I always forget about that. There were a lot of people up and down that goddamn card. Tegan, his daughter, she mentioned how it was really cool to see him on a big stage like that. Michelle, one of Matt's ex-wives, talks. She even said when she found out that Matt was a wrestler before they got together, all that shit's all fake, but Matt made it real. He was 37, I was 21. There was some, I don't remember if it was in Georgia or Mid-Atlantic. I'm trying to remember. But it was when Ole suddenly needed to go with the Road Warriors. It was Arn and Matt Bourne were going to be the top team, and Matt had a certain incident with, I don't want to exactly say what it was without remembering the details. Matt had some incident involving a woman that forced him to leave the territory, and I just wish I could remember what that is, because that might have set the stage for how things are going to go in his relationships and in his life. Mick Foley talked about how Matt was influential on him. You don't just play a character, you inhabit the character. I did not know that Matt Bourne was a second-generation wrestler. I probably should have known that. I apologize for not knowing that. Tough guy Tony Bourne, who was a Portland mainstay. And, it was nice to actually see footage and see pictures of how much Matt and his father, had a good cohesion. They even got to team up on some shows at the very end of Tony's career and the very beginning of Matt's in Portland. That was cool to see. The mom basically said, to the dad, you take him because I don't want the little shit, which that's shit to say. That's really shit to say, like, to a child. That's really not good. You gotta raise a child as best as you possibly can, otherwise you're just a piece of shit. Matt worked in a lot of places. His work was solid. He was tough in the ring. Portland, Mid-Atlantic, Mid-South, world class. WCW, Memphis, WWF, Indies. Tom Pritchard chimed in a little bit. Tom Pritchard's been great on these episodes. And it was cool seeing again the footage of that and the early days of Matt Bourne's early career. Hacksaw Jim Duggan didn't get along with Matt, even though they were part of a team called the Rat Pack, along with Ted DiBiase. There was B. Brian Blair talked about facing, off against Matt in a bar when Matt basically was just hyped up on a whole bunch of shit, not exactly sure what. There was nose biting, there was eyeball gouging, lip biting. Nobody knows what the hell actually happened, but boy, the reenactment certainly told the story like, holy shit, there's some crazy stuff here. Matt was willing to fight. He was tough, but very messed up. And Monroe, Louisiana, basically, after a match, Hacksaw Jim Duggan got popped by a fan. He knocked him down. Matt basically ended up taking it too far with the fan, even though the fan attacked first. Basically kicked him so hard his eyeball fell out. And he got sued, and Bill Watts made an example out of him and released him. Now, to be perfectly honest, I think there might have been more to the story than that. It might have been Matt's issues, and they probably couldn't put up with his shit anymore. And even though he was a big part of the Rat Pack, at least from what I understand, he was seen as the expendable party. He went to WWF, but got released like a year or so later because of drug issues. And it's not that he was the only one on drugs, but numerous things. I mean, not just weed, but all the way up to like crack and cocaine and stuff like that, and a lot of drinking. And it undid a lot of what he could have done in the ring. Even with other transgressions, it undid a lot of what he could have accomplished. Went to world class from like 86 to 89. I mean, good God, by like 87, world class as far as big crowds was really on his fucking ass. Went to WCW after a stint in Memphis. Big Josh, the lumberjack. I remember at 10 years old thinking, why does he have bears coming with him to the ring? And Maria, his ex, went to a show. He asked to see her, took her and her girlfriend out. And basically she said showed up for, the daughter's birth, kind of all messed up, but he showed up. And then we cut to when he went back to the WWF. Hawk even said, he's smoking. Matt's got his hair all messed up. We got our own Krusty over there. And an evil Doink was born. We see the footage of him scaring the kids, doing the stuff, wrestling really well. Because Matt could work. Matt could really do that stuff. He was born to do it in a wrestling ring. Now that everybody shut off the show because of that really bad pun. The highlight was, of course, Mania 9. The two Doinks. The other Doink was Steve Kern. Matt felt like he was going to be replaced, and he was. The drug issues took hold, and basically that was the main reason why he got fired, which would haunt him again for the rest of his goddamn career in life. Maria left him because of the abuse. Not the drug abuse, or not just the drug abuse, but a lot of like physical abuse and stuff like that. And how I guess Matt was in the middle of building like a really, really expensive home, even with an 18-karat bathtub with Doink engraved into it. I mean, and to be fair, him and Vince came up with the idea, so I can understand why Matt felt that gimmick was his. And he really did throw himself into it, but he stayed up for 8 straight days doing coke. I don't know if I believe that. You could, even on drugs, you cannot humanly stay up for 8 goddamn days. You would go mad. You would go mad after 4, at the most. Others replaced him. Steve Kern, who was Skinner, by the way, previously. Yes, the guy that played Skinner, the guy was also one half of the Fabulous Ones in Memphis and the AWA briefly. I think they went to the AWA at some point. Whole point is, yes, he played one of the Doinks. Ray Apollo. I think even Steve Lombardi, the Brooklyn Brawler, played him. Man, he was protective / controlling of women. He would get in fights quite a bit. He went to ECW. He was born again, Matt Bourne. He was using a Doink gimmick. Vince didn't want to do that. The copyrights were signed to him, but Matt said he hadn't gotten his residuals, and Vince said, fine, you get your that's fair. You get your residuals. You can't use Doink. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, if Vince is going to pay him fairly residuals for dolls and video game licensing and stuff like that, because he was in a couple of the video games, even if he was no longer in the company, it was still that gimmick. It made sense. And then he had multiple relationships. He had 4 kids. He really felt bad about being an absentee father. Could have actually tried to be in the kids' lives and not be so messed up. I'm just saying, I know addiction's a disease, but eventually you have to realize, shit, I have to change. He did try to get clean multiple times. It didn't stick. Michelle, who was great in this, got beat up. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks. Matt felt bad about what he did. He didn't remember. Convenient. And then she stayed with him, but then he wasn't going to get clean. She had enough. She took the kids, took a couple things, and that was it. Never pursued her. We go to that indie show incident in 2010 versus Duggan, where Matt tried to shoot on Jim Duggan. And I believe it was Mick Foley that said, you have to make a real attempt at not liking Jim Duggan. And from what I've heard, Hacksaw Jim Duggan is really, really nice. I've never met him. Obviously, I've never met him. I've never been to he's never been to an indie show that I went to around this area. But from what I've heard, stand-up guy, he has beaten cancer multiple times. Great that he beat it. 2013, he moves to Plano, Texas, meets an old manager. I believe she was nurse, something or other. I didn't write that down. But Connie Cook was her real name. Matt helped take care of the mom. Mom had various medications. And Matt ends up dying in 2013. The daughter feels that Connie killed him. Now, this is where it just went completely off the goddamn rails for the last number of minutes. Michelle was upset. Matt even called her and said, I'm leaving the crazy bitch. When he's the one that got with her too at the same time. So what does that say about him? If something happens to me, don't let it go. Connie said that he was acting weird. Like, he was just acting weird. Like, there were some pills in a bottle that were completely gone. That's from hospice. If he doesn't say anything, or if he took them, they could be in trouble. He says, well, I'll just go to jail then. Because, he was an addict. And again, I don't know if Connie's totally innocent in all this, but this is just really, really bizarre that it took this goddamn turn. I said this got weird is what I wrote down. He OD'd, and after he was found drunk outside, apparently, and was laying on a couch, Connie, the conflicting stuff. Connie, saw him, checked on him, went back to bed for a bit, and then called 911 a couple hours later when she realized he wasn't doing well. That she called 911, held up the phone with a friend in Tennessee and said, that's a death rattle, you need to get him going. You need to get him going to the hospital. I said the facts don't add up, but the way they're telling the story doesn't add up either. This got really messy and convoluted at the end, because I don't know enough about all this stuff to fully comment whether Connie did it or Connie didn't do it, or Matt's addictions finally just took hold. The toxicology, hydrocodone, morphine, and enlarged heart from drug abuse, stress, and stuff like that. It was 6 times the normal size, so he wasn't probably going to live long anyway. He had heart issues going back years and years and years, never got them taken care of. Might have been the end of his wrestling career, might have saved his life, though. There was talk, foul play. The daughter says that maybe Connie drugged him and put some morphine or stuff in his crown. And it was just really, really strange that it took this turn. Now, again, am I saying that Connie didn't do it? I don't know. I don't have a goddamn clue. The JYD episode is next week. Family attends his funeral. The kids see him in the casket. They didn't handle it well. No children would. I really do feel bad for the kids. I really do. And Matt definitely wasn't a perfect person. I feel bad that the kids lost their father. I really do. Matt was his own worst enemy. He was the one that made the conscious decision to continue to do drugs at the end of the day. So eventually, even though drug addiction is a disease and help is out there, and sometimes people can spiral into it without realizing it, after a while, it does become a personal choice to get clean. That's not just for wrestling, that's in general. So I'm not blaming the person for their addiction. I'm just saying that there are layers to this whole thing. Evil Doink was a hell of a goddamn gimmick. Matt Bourne was a pretty good worker. It is definitely a career where you have to wonder where he would have gone. But the bottom line is, by the time he became Evil Doink, he was 35. Would that, even if his vices hadn't taken hold, even if he had been clean, would he really have been wrestling there by 38, 39? Probably not. I mean, it might have been too little too late for him. And also, I'm sorry, that thing he did with Hacksaw at that indie show, yeah, that's a piece of shit thing to do, drug addictions or not. It was Matt's decisions ultimately that led to a lot of his career and life issues. Not all of them. Sometimes it's an unfortunate series of circumstances, but that's just how it is. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Recklin. I'll see you soon.